Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. This webinar is to discuss just some of the things you need to know because this weekend we will be posting the new version of AlarmBiller. It is a major release. There is tons and tons of new features and functionality within it, and we're going to go through a lot of that today. We're not going to drill into some of it. We have two follow-up webinars, one next week and one the week after, where we're going to really go into some of the new features for the accounts payable and the general ledger and some other new features which we'll drill into. But this webinar is really just to discuss some of the things you need to know as the new release comes out and what you need to set up for that. I do apologize. I do have a little bit of a cold, so I got my water. I got my throat lozenges, and let's get going. Okay. So first thing I want you to see. I'm all good. Rebecca's walking in here. With more throat lozenges for me, so thank you, Rebecca. The first thing you'll see when you first log in, there's going to be new menu system on the top, and there's some new features in here, and we're going to talk about those. In just a moment. But the first thing I want to just go through is the new security for passwords. So I'm just going to come into my account and say change password. And when you change your password, as you know, you have to type in your old password. So let me just type in my old password. And then you'll see the new password. All new passwords must meet the following requirements. They have to be at least 8 characters long. You need at least one letter, one capital letter, one number, and one symbol, such as like a $sign, %sign, ampersand, @ and so on. And you'll notice as you start typing the password, it's going to start telling you what criteria that it's met. So as I type in here, it's going to start telling me what criteria were met. Let's add a capital letter. Let's add a special character. So now I met the criteria for the password. And again, you have to confirm it and put it in there twice. Now what's going to happen when you log in the first time after the update, it's going to force you to change your password. And that's what it's going to be. So everyone will have to add a new password. The other thing it's going to do to meet some of the federal laws regarding online portals, it's going to ask you to approve the terms and conditions. So you're going to see a terms and conditions sheet come up. You just need to scroll to the bottom and say that I accept that in order to continue to use the software as well. So those are going to be two things. You'll only see that one time, and you only have to change your password the one time to do that. But you do need to meet these criteria. We're doing this just to add added security, and we all know security is a big concern for anything that's on the internet today. Okay, so let's go back to our home screen here, and let's talk about what's new. So the biggest thing that's new that you need to get ready for this new update is the GL features. Now, let me start off by saying this. If you don't want to utilize all the new GL features, the general ledger, the accounts payable, you do not have to. It's not a requirement. You can continue to use the software pretty much just as you do now. The QuickBooks export works exactly the same as it does now, so that does not go away. Remember, the QuickBooks export only works with the accounts receivable side of things. It's not going to work with the general ledger and the accounts payable. The idea is if you're going to use the accounts payable and general ledger in AlarmBiller, then you really would replace QuickBooks. So, but because there is general ledger, there is a few things you do need to do when you get the new update. The first thing is, under the setup, there is going to be a new setup called GL accounts. And you do need to have certain GL accounts set up within the application. Now, if you want, you can create a complete chart of accounts within the system. But you don't have to if you're not going to use all of it. But there are a few that it will automatically create, such as like an accounts receivable. It's going to create one for your bank account, and you do need to have a few of these set up. So we do recommend, I think this is a very powerful feature, the new general ledger and the reporting that you're going to see that you can get out of this. And as we go through the webinar next week, when we really drill into all the general ledger features, this is very, very powerful in terms of what you're going to be able to do with AlarmBiller now. Once you create your GL chart of accounts, then within your setup, you need to link your items and parts to that proper GL account. Now, as you know right now in your software, when you set up a item or a part, it asks for a GL number. If you already have that GL number set up, when the update is done, it's going to automatically add that GL number to the chart of accounts. If it doesn't exist and you don't have anything in there, it's going to create just a generic value for you, which you can just easily go into the GL table and modify. So when you look at your invoice items, you will notice now it's not a free text to select your GL account for it. You will actually just hit from the pull down and select the proper account that you want that to go to. So for example, my item code called Inspection Services, I have a GL account called Inspection Services. Now what's nice about the GL and the way it works is you can have multiple item codes going to the same GL account. So for example, my monitoring revenues, my radio backup, and maybe if I had opening and closing services, they can all point to the same GL account. So from a GL reporting, it will report it all as one revenue account. But from my recurring revenue reports and from my sales reports, you'll be able to report at the item code level. So the item codes work exactly the way they do right now. The only difference, like I said, will be the GL account will be the link from the GL table. That's probably one of the most important things in setting up the new version. And so when this is updated, and our hope is to have the update all done on Saturday. So if you want to go in on Sunday or Monday morning and set this up. The good news is you can continue to run your business Monday morning. Everything will still work, and if you set it up even after the fact, things are still going to work and report just fine. Okay. Now, I'm going to come back in and talk about these vendor purchase items in just a moment. Let's go back into the setup, and now let's talk about parts. Your parts table, and I don't have a large parts database in this test database I have. You'll notice it also has a GL account associated with it. So when I click on my GL account, I can go ahead and I can pick which GL account I want to be associated with my part code. So when I sell this, this is where the revenue is going to go to. You'll notice there's also a new feature within the part, and that is the ability to create what's called a thumbnail image. So what you can now do is you can create thumbnails and upload that into the system by clicking this select file, and this will allow you to pick which file you want in there. I'm not going to change the one I have, and you just upload that image. You'll be able to use the image throughout the application in different areas when you're looking at it, when we talk in the upcoming webinars, we're going to talk about our new ability to define and create your own proposals. And when you do that, you can actually include that picture of the image as part of that. So that's a new feature as well. So really the thing that I would say is if you make a checklist of things you need to do, 1 is your GL, 2 is your items, 3 is your parts. And really that's probably the most work you'll need to do to set it up. There's one other item we'll talk about, and that's the bank account in just a moment. Let's go back into the setup, and I'm going to click on the items again. You'll notice there is a new tab right here, and we're going to talk about this next week in our webinar when we talk about the accounts payable. But the invoice items are things that you sell to your customers that go on invoices. Vendor purchase items are things that you buy from your vendors on bills and purchase orders. And we'll go through that in more detail, but it works just kind of like an invoice item, but this is kind of things that you might buy, like anything from like accounting services, paper, toner cartridges, supplies, and so on. The only thing that you will not use for vendor purchase items is your parts. Parts are set up through the parts table, which are both used for purchasing and used for selling. These are kind of like the non-part items that you are going to buy. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions on that, please go ahead and ask and submit those questions to us. Okay, so let's continue on. The next thing you need to know, as I said, is your bank account. So this is probably the 4th thing that you would need to set up. Part of the new release is we now support multiple bank accounts. So you can have a checking account, a savings account. If you have different bank accounts with different banks, you can now go ahead and set those up. And so let's go ahead and click on this checking account. And I'm going to edit this first just to show you where you set it up. But you'll set up your checking account, and we have the ability to print checks, and we'll talk about this. But what you do is you link that to what's called a GL account. Once it's linked, you cannot unlink it. So you have one opportunity to get that right. And that's because for auditing and reconciliation purposes, we can't allow you to change it once it's set up. So if you set it up wrong, you actually could delete it and then reset it up if you needed to. This is more informational only if you want to put the accounting number and routing number within there. Okay, so let's go back into that checking account. And if you notice now, and again, we're going to talk more about this in depth on our next webinar, but when I look at a checking account now, you can actually see the balance of that checking account. You can see the register of every check, every deposit, every withdrawal that came out of there. You have the ability to click on the transaction and drill into it. You're going to also notice you're going to have the ability to reconcile your bank accounts. And this is the history of all my bank reconciliations, as well as if you have any checks that need to be printed, you'll be able to do that from within here as well. And again, we're going to go through this more in detail on our next webinar when we talk about the GL and the accounts payable in more in depth. So why is that bank account important? Let's jump into our payments for a moment. When you create a payment, whether you're creating a new deposit batch or you use the payment batch process. So if I wanted to do a new payment batch, you'll notice right on the top screen, it's going to say, what checking account am I depositing these checks into? Now, in the setup, and I'll go through this in just a moment, you will define what's your default bank account. And so it's going to always use that as the default right here. So if for some reason you wanted to make a deposit of checks, but you wanted to go into a different bank account, you could just simply select that bank account. And that's where the money is going to be deposited into. If you just create a, let's go back over here and say we want to add a new deposit. This is the other way to create deposits. Again, you will choose which bank account that deposit is going to be made into. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Any questions on that, please go right ahead and submit those questions to us. Now, So I did mention that on the setup, under your preferences, I believe it's preferences, this is where you are going to set up your default bank accounts. So this is where your default bank account is coming into. This is, you'll notice the accounts receivable and accounts payable accounts, the system only supports one of each of those, so it's defined in the GL, and so you can't modify those. This service charge and interest earned accounts are default accounts used during the bank reconciliation process. And what this means is if when you're doing the bank rec, if you have any bank fees, that's where it would actually expense those to. If you made any money on interest, pretty hard to do these days, but if you do, it's going to, you could pick the income account that you want that to go to. So those are some of the preferences that you can set up for that. Also, while I'm on this page, we have a new feature. This is a feature that has been asked by some of our clients that has to do with the customer web portal. And if you know, when you log in and the client logs in to your URL, it shows the AlarmBiller logo. And we had a lot of clients who has asked and said, you know, can you please not put the AlarmBiller logo on that web page, because it just confuses the customer and they don't know of AlarmBiller. So you now have a new option that says hide logo. This will hide the AlarmBiller logo. So if I click that, when I log in, it's not going to give me and show me that logo anymore. So I'm just going to click that and click save. Okay, so let's just see if I go to a new tab here. I'm just going to go to this test company that I'm currently logged into, and you'll notice the AlarmBiller logo is no longer here. So your customer is just going to see your name and address for that. Okay, let's close that. All right, so let's continue on. Again, if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask those as we go, and we'll hit those mostly at the end. Okay, so let's talk about some new features that have been added within the system. And one of the main new features has to do with RMR. You'll notice there's a new RMR tab, and when you click on this, you will see that the first thing you see is all of the RMR that is for your customers. So this is a complete listing of every customer's RMR in the system. Now, one of the things we've done, and if you remember, on the customer tab, and I know I jump around sometimes, we've always had this ability to create what are called custom available columns, where you can actually choose which columns you want to appear on this tab. Well, what we've done now is go back to that RMR. We've made that available columns available in many other places. So even right in here, and we've actually enhanced this quite a bit. So if I want, and I want to see more or different data fields here, I could choose my available columns, come down here, and I could say which other fields do I want to see. So maybe it's not important for me to see the cancellation date here, but I do want to see the activation date, okay? And I want to see the customer since date. So I can now add these fields in here, and now I have my activation date, my customer since date, and what's nice about this now, I could say click on the customer grid layout, and I can actually save this grid layout so I can use it in the future. And when you save a grid layout, you could do it in one of two ways. You can make it a global layout. If you do that, then it's available to every user. If you uncheck this, then it's a personal, it's my grid layout. Only I will be able to see this grid layout. If you make it a global one, somebody else can delete it and change it. If I don't want anyone else to change my layouts, I would just make it a personal one, and I would just call this my new layout. Okay, give it a name, and I say save my layout. And that's all you have to do. So let's close this. So next time I come into my RMR tab, I'm just going to refresh this real quick. All I do is click Custom Layouts. I'm going to say Show My Layouts. There's my new layout. I click on it, and I say Apply My Layout, and there it is. So it's very easy to have your own layouts. What's really nice about this feature, too, is the Export to Excel. So whatever is selected right here is what's going to export to Excel. So if I wanted to export this RMR list, I just build it the way I want it, and then I come over here and I can go ahead and I can export it. If I wanted to only see customers who have a next invoice date of a certain date, I could click on that column. I could say Filter. I could say is equal to. And let's, instead of doing that, because they all have 5.1, I'm going to do it on the item code. So I'm going to say item code, filter is equal to, I'm just going to type in monitoring, and I'm going to say filter. And you notice now I only see 2 lines because the other ones is no longer there. If I click on this and I go back to my filter and I say clear, it will now clear that filter and I see everything. So when I click the export, it's only going to export what's been currently selected. And so all I have to do is click Export to Excel, and I click on that. It's going to open up Excel, and there's my Microsoft Excel. I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. And there is all of that data that we just did. And then from there, you could do whatever you want. So if you wanted to report on it and modify it from there. Okay. So that's your new RMR tab. It's really nice. The other nice thing about this is you can click on any customer, and it's going to just open up that customer. Or what you can do is you can click on any of the RMR items, and it will go and drill right into that RMR item. So it makes it nice to be able to look at something and view it. Oops, let me click that. Okay. Okay, the next thing we've added, and I'm going to skip this tab and I'm going to come right over to this one. I'm going to come back here in just a moment. This is what's called the RMR invoice generation history. So we've been asked by a lot of our customers, when you go in and you run your recurring revenue and you do your big run, and whether you have 100 customers or 1,000, it doesn't matter, they said, I'd like to have a history of what we did. So that's what we've added here. And this will be a history of every time you've run your recurring revenue. And this will be each batch. Each batch will show you each invoice that was created, and then what recurring services were created within that batch. So you're going to get a complete listing. I don't have a lot of data here. If you had 1,000 customers in here, you're going to see 1,000 invoices within this list. Again, you can export this list right to Excel as well. So it gives you that history of everything you've done and when you did it. Now, unfortunately, everything you've done prior to the release to this new upgrade, we can't go back and recreate this. So this will only start fresh once the update is done. So you're only going to see the new ones added to here. Unfortunately, we can't go back in time and add the old ones. So that's a really nice feature. We're really excited to get this in here. So the next one is the new feature to do what are called RMR rate changes. And this will be a history of every global rate change we do. If I go into an individual customer and I change their RMR, that's still going to be tracked in the tracking, but that's not going to show up here. This is going to show when we do what's called a global rate change. So how do we do a global rate change? There's a new feature right here called a new rate change. Now, before I do this, let me make a recommendation. You really need to look at your user level security because you don't want everyone to have access to that. So let me just open up a new tab here. I'm going to go into my users. I'm going to click on this user right here, and you'll notice under our security permissions, under RMR, you have the different security levels. So if you don't want someone to have access to that to do these rate changes, make sure you turn that off. And for most people, that should be turned off. Right now, I believe the default is only administrators will be able to do global rate changes. Okay, so let's do it. Let's go to our new rate change, and we want to now process a global rate change. Now, doing rate increases can get very tricky. There's all different parameters and different reasons why someone wants to do it, and how you pick your customers. So the way it works is you will use this grid to create a selection of all of your recurring revenues that you want to have rate increases for. But you could also then do sub-selections on this. You can also pick and choose additional columns. So there might be additional columns you want to use to help pick the criteria for what customers are going to get your rate increases. So for example, let's just say that I only want to do a rate increase for the customers that have a monitoring item code. I could come over here. Again, I'll apply a filter. I'm going to say for monitoring, and I'm going to say filter. Now I just have these two customers. I might say I only want to do the rate increase for the customers that have a next invoice date, maybe of 5/1. That's my next, I've already done my April in this database. So you could actually apply a filter there. This one already has it, so I won't do that. Now, when you do the rate increase, you can say, is it a percentage rate increase, or is it a dollar amount? So if I uncheck, keep this unchecked, and I put my rate change, it's going to be a dollar amount. There you go, $2. If I put in a percentage, it would say what percentage. Maybe I want to do a 3.5% rate increase. So let's say, for example, you have some customers and some things you want to rate increase $2, because monitoring, I maybe want to rate increase $2, but I have other services, maybe I want to rate increase $3. You would actually you would do this RMR rate change 2 different times, select the right item codes, apply a $2 rate increase to your monitoring, and then go back in and maybe for your opening and closings, apply a $3 rate increase. Now, every time you modify and change the recurring revenue, we need to give it a reason code. So here we can say, what's my reason code? And I might say it's a rate increase. So this way, when it writes the tracking, it's going to tell me that we did this because we did a rate increase. Now, if this all looks good, I can turn around and say, select all. And all of these customers are now selected for my rate increase. If for some reason I didn't want to increase this one, I can uncheck it. And now it's just going to do the rate increase for this one customer. Now, once I've done this and everything looks like, okay, everything's good, I have my one customer selected, I could say preview rate change for selected RMRs. This will now bring me to my preview where I can look at and I can see every customer that's going to be subject to this rate increase, what their old recurring revenue was, their new recurring revenue, and what the change is. I can export this to Excel to make sure everything looks correct. Now, if I found out, oh, no, this isn't right, I want to make a modification, I'll just click back to my RMR selection. I come in here, I make my changes, and then I can come back into here. Okay? If everything looks good and say, yep, I did it, I want to apply this, you come in here and you say apply rate change. Now it's going to ask you a question. Confirm this. Are you sure you want to apply these rate changes? This cannot be undone. Now, it can be undone individually. You could go into any individual customer and reverse it, or you could actually build a global rate thing to do it reverse. But once you do this, it's going to apply it. So I'm going to click OK and say apply these. And there it did it. My rate changes have been applied. Okay? So we did a rate change for this one account right here. I'm going to click on it, and here we can see that I have a rate change that we did for them. Okay? So it's that simple to do your rate increases for your customers. And now if I go to my RMR rate change history, you'll notice I have a new history record in there, and it will tell me, and it will show me all the customers that were part of that rate change, what their old rate was, what their new rate was, and what their the change amount was. So that's your new RMR rate change history to do this. So very, very powerful feature. If you have questions on using it, please, make sure you send in your support requests. And but it's quite easy to use, as you can see, but it's very powerful. So you got to just take your time when you're doing it and make sure you do it properly. Okay. So there is a few questions that came in. I'm going to take a moment to try to answer a few of these. Can a user do a rate change that isn't global? Of course they can. You could always go in. Let's just go to our customer grid. I could individually select an individual customer. I could look at their RMR. Let's just go to the RMR here. So this radio backup. And if I wanted to just change this one, their current rate is $10. I could come over here and say edit. Maybe I want to change it to $11. So I say $11. And I say, what's the reason why? Again, maybe I'm going to say I'm just doing a rate increase. And the reason why I'm doing that, I click save. And you'll notice it applied that rate increase that we just did right now. So that's a way to do an individual one that you can always do at any time. The next one says, do you have a filter so that you can make sure you do not rate change someone that you have already in the past year? Yes, we actually do. So if you noticed, one of the things when you actually do that rate change, we had those custom fields, or all the other fields you could choose. One of them is the last rate increase date. And so what you can do is you can say, I only want to select customers that haven't had a rate increase since a certain date. So if they've had a rate increase within the last year, you can automatically bypass them. So yes, you do have the ability to do that. Some of these other ones aren't regarding that, so I'll come back to this. Does the complete RMR list also include the terminated customers? No. Well, the RMR list is only going to include the active RMR. So these are active recurring revenue. Any recurring revenue item that is currently canceled, or if the customer's canceled that doesn't have any RMR, it will not appear here. So this is active recurring revenue only is going to appear on this screen. Okay. Let's continue on for a few other things, and then there's some other questions, and I'm going to come back to those in just a moment. So another feature that people have asked for is when you're taking a payment over the phone, or if a customer is using the web portal and they have a late fee, they want the ability to show that late fee. So here's a customer right here that has a current late fee balance, $12.59. So if I'm talking to this customer and I'm doing a collection call and they want to make a payment, I could come over here to my credit cards, and I could say new transaction. There's a new field on here when I do that transaction. It now displays the late fee amount. So when I go ahead and do that, I could tell them, okay, we can charge them for that late fee right from here. Now, if they're going to pay their invoices and I don't want to charge the late fee amount, I just zero that out and make it zero. If I wanted to charge just only $10 of it, I could just make it $10. Okay. If I wanted to charge the whole amount, I'll just go back and make it to $12.59. And then if I go in here and I select any additional amounts, it's just going to add each invoice to get my total amount of the payment, my late fee amount plus my invoice amount. And if I paid multiple invoices, it's just going to accumulate that. And then you know how to do it from here. You select your credit card, or you can add a new credit card or e-check right from here, and then make that payment. This same feature with the late fee amount also shows up on the customer portal if the customer has a late fee that they currently owe. So again, they don't have to pay it, but if they do pay it and say, oh, okay, I'll pay that $12, they can collect it. So it's both in both of these places now, and that's something some of our users have asked for. The late fee is a very powerful feature, especially for using it as a collection tool. Not only does it help bring in past due money, but it's also a way to collect money on that as a revenue source. And there's clients out there that are bringing in hundreds of dollars a month on that, and it's a nice feature to utilize. Okay, so with that said, I'm just going to do a real quick recap. So when you do your setup, and get this, make sure you go through your GL, your items, your parts, and your bank accounts, as well as go into that customer preferences. Now, there's some other questions here, so I'm going to take a few moments here and try to go through these questions. Again, if you have any other questions afterwards, remember, just click on your support center right up on top here and just submit your any questions you have to our support department, and we'll be more than happy to answer those as we go along. Okay, let's just see. So the question is, can you please talk about proposals lead tracking? Also, do you now offer profitability reporting on service tickets? And someone else add the profit and loss on jobs. So let's talk about the profit and loss on reporting on the jobs and the work orders. So because we've introduced the GL, we now have the ability to do all the tracking both on a revenue and on a cost for your work orders to be able to do job costing. So the initial release, while we have all of this, doesn't have all the job costing reports. This is one of the first items on our agenda after we get this release out the door. And you're going to see now a whole new series of job costing and analysis reports for all of your work orders, whether it's a service ticket or an installation, so that you're going to be able to produce true job costing reports. Now, in order to use that, you will have to embrace the GL functionality, because that's the only way we can actually produce that. So it's not there. The infrastructure is all there, but it's coming out, and I would say within the next 30, 60, 90 days the most, you're going to see all of that coming. Now, what's also coming with that, because this is a big feature, is going to be more inventory management, right down to being able to do warehouse control for your parts. So that's all coming with this as well. And that's going to be probably the next major release after this one. Okay. For the thumbnail images, do you have the ability to show or not show on proposals? Absolutely, yes. It's going to be your option. If you have the thumbnails and you want to show them, you can. If you don't want to show them, you don't have to. So it's your option. Can we import parts via Excel file, or do we need to hand enter each part? A great question. There is a utility within our setup, and let me just leave this page, to actually do a parts uploader. So this is one of our uploader utilities. You can click on the parts uploader, and what this will do is it will give you what you need to do that. You can click this download template. This will actually give you the template file, that the format you need to put your parts in Excel. And so if I click on it, let's just open that up real quick and show you. Not sure why it's not opening. I got to figure out something to do with my system. But that would open up the Excel file, and it would give you the things. Once you have the part in there, you would just save it and click Select Files, and you have the ability to upload your parts right into the system. So that's it. The answer to that is yes. Um, can we input the GL via Excel? The answer is, unfortunately, no. We don't have that feature right now. You do have to go into the GL table, and when you need to add that, I'm sorry, you'll need to go into your setup and click on GL accounts and build your chart of accounts. So, you need to come in here and add each one of them. I will talk to our development team. I think that's a good idea, though, maybe to add a GL account uploader. I think that's a real good idea. Okay. What section allows you to hide the AlarmBiller logo? Again, that's underneath your setup. You're going to choose your preferences. And under the preferences, under customer portal preferences, just choose this hide logo option. That's all you have to do. And then the logo will be hidden and no one will see it anymore. Let's go on. When will this be live? This is going to be live over the weekend. The system will be down for probably about a couple hours. It's either going to be sometime Saturday is when we're going to do this. I don't have the exact time. I'll make sure that our support, or we get out an email just so that people know what that downtime is going to be, and because it is a major update, and once it's done, you should be able to log back in and everything should be good to go. But come Monday morning, this will be all up and running. There's a question on accounts payable with credit cards. There is the ability to pay your vendors through the new accounts payable, and we're going to talk more about that on the next webinar next week. So this is a really good question. Do you suggest my accountant having access to AlarmBiller? So that's a great question. And my suggestion would be yes. We really hope that you look at AlarmBiller to be your full general ledger system to do your financial reporting. Under the reports, there are new trial balance reports, profit and loss reports, balance sheet reports, and again, there's complete security behind this, so if you don't want some users to be able to run this, which is very understandable, you can prevent that. But what's most important about this is your accountant. Yes, I would give your CPA access to AlarmBiller. Create a user for them, choose what they can do. They can come into the system and create journal entries, do your financials, do reporting, and they have all the ability to do that. So yes, great question, and yeah, I would absolutely give my accountant access to the system. And I think any accountant that understands financial systems will have a very easy time using the software. As you know, it's very intuitive and all that. Okay. Do you have an add-on for lead tracking? I know we're now jumping off into different things. There is the ability to track prospects right within here. I don't have any in my system. Oh, no, I do. I have one prospect right here. So, yeah, you can do your prospect tracking right through here. And, again, I won't go into this in detail now, but if you have any questions on this, make sure you create a support center ticket, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through that. Very good question here. Will there ever be a payroll tab? Great question. The answer to that is most likely not. I don't want to ever say never, but we, for payroll, most of our clients traditionally have used a payroll service center, like an ADP, Paychex, or a local provider. One of the next webinars, not the one that's next week, but the week after, we're going to talk about another new feature that's available, which is our new time and attendance module. that can interface with a payroll service bureau. But for customers that want to do their own payroll in-house, we do recommend a program. It's called PenSoft, and we'd be more than happy to get you more information on that if you want that. Okay. So that's pretty much it. There's a few other questions, but we will get back to those offline. In the meantime, if you have any questions, be sure to submit those to our support center. If you're using the system, I suggest you log in over the weekend just to go through the new features, set up the GL, and look at all the different setup things that we talked about today. Make sure you let your employees know when they log in that there's going to be a new login and password that they're going to have to set up. So, but it's going to prompt them, and they won't be able to log in unless they do it, and it's quite intuitive on what needs to be done. So that's it for today's webinar. I want to thank you all for joining us, and what I would like to do is now is I'm going to tell Sam she could stop the recording, and we look forward to having you on our webinar